Welcome to The Strategic Edge, the podcast for entrepreneurs and business owners who want a competitive edge in the market. They want to be seen as the expert in their industry, and they're looking for cutting edge and innovative strategies that work across industries to help them scale their business like a boss. My name is Carden, and I'm your host. Welcome to the show. Hey everyone, it's Carden here, and I want to welcome you to another episode of The Strategic Edge. I'm so excited for my guest today. Dusty DeGroff is a financial advisor, and I've been wanting to get some financial advisors on here to give you all some incredible information, and so I am excited to have him today. So Dusty, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, it's always great to get to meet other professionals anyway, but when they're excellent in their space, and we actually found out that we have some similarities, when we were chatting before this podcast. So it's always nice to meet people and you find out just how much you do have in common with people. So Dusty, tell us a little bit about your business, what you do, kind of how you got into it. We just want to hear all about you and what it is you do.
Well, thank you again for having me on. And so, there's a lot of us financial advisors out there, and not a lot of people understand what we do, right? And kind of backtracking on how I got here, I didn't even know what financial advisors did. And then I was a personal trainer for 13 years. And one of my longtime clients just one day asked me if I wanted to switch roles. And I dug in and I found that, wait a minute, I love helping people. Mm-hmm. And I wanted a little more control of my time, right? As a personal trainer, you are at the beck and call of your clients. Yeah. Where as a financial advisor, I can, if the kid gets, I have two kids, so if one of them gets sick, I can go pick them up from school, right? So there's a lot more flexibility, and that's why I wanted to change careers. And so what I really focus on as a financial advisor is, what's important to my clients, okay, right? And I base everything, all of our decisions and recommendations off of, what their goals are. Mm-hmm. What does your 3 to 5 year goal look like? What does the 6 years plus look like? Mm-hmm. Everybody goes, well, do I want to retire or should I retire? And it's like, well, what do you want? Mm-hmm. And is that what we want to strive for? Great. Is it a transition where you get to a certain age where now you don't want to do your current career and you want to transition into a different career? So it's those kind of questions, and that's how it guides the plan. Mm-hmm. And then we invest your investable assets according to that plan to make sure we get there.
I love that. And I love that you really help them establish their goals because, I work with small business owners and professionals. And one of the things that I have seen through the years working with hundreds of them is they don't establish goals. They don't know what that end goal is. And, I shared with you before we started this that I had sold several businesses. And I knew when I was building those businesses that someday I wanted to sell those as part of my retirement, as part, I had an exit strategy, but too many people don't think that way. They don't think that way in their personal life. They don't think that way in their business, and they're really missing the mark if they don't. Don't you agree?
Absolutely. And I think that, again, that's what I always ask, right? Like when we're talking about small business owners specifically, it's like, okay, do you want this small business to be passed on to your kids as a legacy? Or do you want to, sell it and retire on it? Because how we approach the business and savings and everything like that, we need to know what the end game is.
Sure.
Right. And then work backwards. And that's the one thing that I've found that when I say, hey, what is your 3 to 5 year goal? People just look at me blank. Mm-hmm. They don't know. And that's when I said, okay, well, do you own your own home? Right. If the answer is yes, okay, well, what is it the dream home? Right? Or if the answer is no, okay, do you want to own a home? Right? And so that's how I just try to coach people through, like, what is your goal? Mm-hmm. Right? What is important to you? And then you have kids. Do you want them to go to college? Do you want to pay for that? Right? We assume that people want to pay for their kids' college. Not everybody wants to pay for that. Right? And so again, it comes back to like, okay, let's talk through this and let's build a plan. And then the key here, right, is that's what sets me apart, I feel like, is the accountability.
Okay.
Right?
Talk a little bit about that. Talk a little bit about the accountability. So I do the same thing, right? I hold clients accountable to get done what they need. So talk a little bit about how you do that.
So great question. And I think that a lot of times people look, it's your, in my world, this is your money, right? So I can only do so much. But again, it's one of those questions of what you do today is either going to send you down the right path or the correct path or down the other path, right? And so it's those conversations where, okay, hey, the market pulled back and you want to go to cash, but is that really, that's not going to get us on, keep us on track for our goals. So it's those conversations and telling people not what they want to hear, but what they need to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be hard.
The hard stuff.
Right. And it's not a judgment,
Right.
right? It's a kind of like, hey, this is a discussion. This is what we talked about. And we need to figure out how to, again, keep you on track, but also just have a conversation about it.
Mm-hmm. And I would think too, just having those conversations, just like when I sit down and talk to someone about their business, I like to open up their mind, right, and get them thinking about things they never thought about before. And I know that it sounds like you're doing the same thing. Really, you're really getting them to, just really give some thought as to what they want their life to look like in the future, even now. So I love that you're doing that. And I like that you're taking that care with them instead of just trying to, sell your stuff or push your stuff on them. Let me ask you though, there's a lot of financial advisors out there, right? And how do you kind of distinguish yourself or set yourself apart in the market when it is such a crowded space and so busy? And how do I know that you're the right person for me? Like, how can someone decide those things?
So how does someone decide that? And then I'll attack that first and then like what sets me apart, right? And so how do you decide who the right financial advisor is, you just feel like you can trust them. When you ask a question, do they give you, an answer or do they give you an actual answer,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then the second piece is, I really try to demystify finance, right? We have so many different synonymous terms, and I think it's just set up to, confuse people, right? And so I always like to tell stories and educate my clients about what we're doing, right? And I think that that's what sets me apart. To kind of the second part of your question is education, right? Mm-hmm. Like people all the time go, hey, can you just make this decision for me? And it's like, no, I can't. Mm-hmm. Right? But here's all the available information. Here's all the different scenarios that could happen. Mm-hmm. And again, based on your goals and what's important to you, these are the 2 or 3 best options. Mm-hmm. And then we go from 3 options down to 2 options, and then we get to the best option. Mm-hmm. It's not my decision, it's the client's decision, but it's the conversation around that.
Right. And so a lot of times I know people, they're coming to someone like you because they don't know all the pieces and all the moving parts and all the things that they need. And so they're looking for that guidance, but I really like that you educate them and walk them through that. And you really have to bring it down to a level. I always say, I'm a marketing person too, right? So I'm like, you have to speak their language. You can't speak your guru talk. You can't speak your financial advisor talk. You have to really bring it down and so that they can understand it. And even as a business consultant, I have to catch myself sometimes making sure that I'm not, talking over someone's head where they feel silly or they're embarrassed because they don't know what I'm talking about, right? So we have to be really careful about that.
Yeah, and I think that's where, my experience as a personal trainer, mm-hmm. right?
Really I was just thinking that too, yes.
Right, where we have this, look, the body is very, very complicated, mm-hmm. right? But gaining muscle or losing weight isn't complicated, right? It's consistency, it's consistently showing up. And the same thing, right? When it comes to the financial planning side of things, it's consistency. Whatever you're doing, you got to do it on a consistent basis, mm-hmm. right? And again, it's just like, I could explain how each muscle contracts, just like I can explain how all these dividends and P&E ratios and all that stuff, but that's going to go right over people's heads. Right. What we have to look at is go, hey, company X is really solid because of these 3 things, right? Their profits are better, or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And then you go, again, here's the best way that we can, advance your goals based on that, right? And then what avenue, because because sometimes people, it's so interesting, right? We do a risk tolerance, right? It's 6
Right.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
And people always ask why we have to do this. And it's like, I want to know how you feel about these different investing topics.
Mm-hmm.
And then that allows me to understand where your head's at and what level, right? Because there are different levels of experience in the market.
Mm-hmm.
And to your point, you got to kind of meet people where they're at, what level they're at.
Right. I like that. So you do a risk assessment with them, and then that sort of gives you that kind of helps you get the roadmap developed to
Yes.
get them to their goals or to the end result that they're really looking for, right?
Yeah, so the risk tolerance is one piece, right? Like, again, that's kind of their emotional response to the market, right? One of my favorite questions, and the reason it's my favorite question is, what would you do if the market pulled back by 25% or more in a year? The
Mm-hmm.
reason it's my favorite is we just lived it, right? It just happened. So a year ago, when you're filling that out, everybody's like, yeah, I love when things are at a discount. I want to buy in the market, right? But then when it actually happens,
And you see your money go.
right, how do you
Right.
feel about that, right? And
Right.
so that again is where it's just one piece, right? So we have what's important to you, and then we have the risk, and then we also have time, right? Time horizon. And that's when I say, 3 to 5 years or 6+ years.
Mm-hmm.
Because look, if you came to me and you said, hey, I have $20,000 and I want to put it on a down payment for my house in a year, we're
Mm-hmm.
not going to put that in the market,
Right.
right? Because we might get lucky and it might be up by 6% in a year,
Mm-hmm.
or we could just see what just happened and now it's 25% less.
Mm-hmm. Right. Right. Yeah, and I think that also, and I know you do this, but I'm sure you do this, but also their age is going to be a real factor in that as well. I know as I'm older, I'm getting close to retirement age, I'm not going to want to take the same risk as if I did this when I was 20 years old and, thought that I had a lifetime to build all of those assets and everything. So I know that's a piece of what you do.
Absolutely. And I think that that's where, people are worried about what we're living through right now, right? The pullback and things like that. And look, if you're going to retire this year, or if you were thinking about it, or you're close to that, we should have already have rebalanced the account, right? Based on risk tolerance, based on the time horizon,
Mm-hmm.
to be more conservative anyway. So when you see 25% of the market is down, or sorry, the market is down 25%, that doesn't mean your account is down 25%,
Mm-hmm.
right? We should be in a more conservative space at that point, that, okay, maybe 50% of your account is down 25%, right? Because the other part is in fixed income and stuff like that.
So I have just a couple of questions here that might, just to give some clarity to the listeners. When you have a client, how often are you reviewing everything? And how often are you making shifts and changes and just really staying on top? And can you handle a lot of clients? I think that's something that a lot of people would question.
Great question. And so, it's one of those things. One, how often does, the client want to be contacted, right? That's the number one thing. And also, we've been talking about it, time horizon,
Right.
right? So if you're getting close to retirement and you're living off of that income from your investments, it's very important, right? Now, again, as long as we're in high quality investments, the changing of things we don't have to do very often, right?
Okay.
Because when we're in, like, again, the more complex, right, then it takes more eyes on. Meaning, if we're in individual bonds and individual equities per se, then we need to be paying a lot of attention because of what the market movements. But
Mm-hmm.
if we're in mutual funds, right, or exchange traded funds,
Mm-hmm.
we already have other sets of lifeguards making sure that everything, they're doing their thing on their end, and we just want to make sure that we're in good mutual funds, right? And so if, going back to how often, right? Well, it depends on what is the percentages, right? So if we're in an 80-20 portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
right, and I get a flag that said, hey, we're now in, at 75, right, 25 versus 80-20, so we need to rebalance, right? So then I get a flag there, and then we go, okay, is it the right time to do it? And again, I can't do any discretionary trading. So that's when I would contact the client, right? Where it said, hey, here's what we're looking at. Do we need to do anything? No, we still own those same investments, but this is a good time to buy. Because if you're at 80-20 and it drops to 75-25, that means that the value of the equities went down a little bit. So now we take money from the fixed and put it into the market, and right, because we're buying at a discount. So how often? Well, it depends on, again, I'm broken record, time horizon, right? Mm-hmm. When are you going to need this money? Mm-hmm. And how often does the client want to be contacted? I have some people that are like, I don't want to hear from you except unless I have to, which is crazy, right? Like, this is your money.
It's your money.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so we have a lot of safeguards that flag us and said, hey, this account needs your attention. And then I do proactive calls on a quarterly, trimester, whatever the client wants, where I just reach out to them and say, hey, here's what I'm seeing in the market. Here's what I'm seeing in your accounts. Let me know if you have any questions. There's a lot of voicemails, right? People are busy.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So now I want to ask you, because we have a lot of business owners that are going to listen to this podcast, and a lot of professionals who, I know have investments or are thinking about investing. And so but I also want to talk to you from a business standpoint, because this is the strategic edge, right? So I want to find out, you've been in your business about 2 years, you said, and what have you found what was the hardest thing for you starting your own business? Really, I know you're still obviously we're always in growth mode, right? So what's been the hardest thing for you, and then maybe how you've overcome that?
So I think paying attention to leading indicators versus lagging indicators, right? And so, and probably if I take a step back, the hardest thing for me was, as a personal trainer being established for 13 years, people came to me, right? And they were referrals or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. And I was at a place that said, hey, I have these 3 time slots available. This is what I'm expecting, and this is the cost, right? And take it or leave it. And most people are like, cool, because their friends were already working with me, right? So their friends were like, kind of promoting me. So that could happen. I would know if you were going to be a client in maybe a week, right? Flip to this business, and now I'm doing all that kind of marketing and prospecting on my own, right? People aren't coming to me, right? Because now I have to build
eventually as you grow and as you build.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. And then that didn't surprise me. What surprised me was going from a week, right, turnaround from prospect to client, to I have some people that I've been talking to for 18 months.
Oh, wow.
And that's just because I'm not pushing, right? Like I'm here to help however I can. And if you don't have a need, then I'm not going to sit there and bug you to make a need. And so not everybody's that way. Some people are like, hey, I need to do this right now. So it's shorter. But then there are the people that it does take a long time. So that was just the tenacity to continue to stay with people and know that it's not me, right? Like, as a business owner, sometimes we focus so much internal, like it's stuff that I'm doing. People have lives, right? They got other stuff going on, and it's just not at the right time. But the longer you stay around and stay top of mind, then it becomes the right time, and then they call you.
Yeah. So basically you're talking about client acquisition, getting clients, and that's always, the biggest struggle for people as they're starting a business. So what advice can you give? One thing you said is stay around, kind of that tenacity, obviously I'm sure you probably follow up and all of those kinds of things. How do you get clients? How do you reach people? What is your process or your system that you use?
Yeah. So I'm mostly, in this age in 2020, right? It's kind of before COVID, after COVID, right? But, and it's networking. And that's my main one. And I lead with value, right? And here's the deal, right? Like, people talk to financial advisors all the time, and they're kind of waiting for the sale, right? They're waiting for that person to try to turn them into a client. And I do the opposite. I'm here to help, right? I'm here to provide. I want to be the go-to person for all of my clients, and on the flip side, all of these other small business owners, where they go, hey, I bet you Dusty knows someone, right? And
Right.
so that's been my main thing, where it's just working with other busy professionals and providing them value. And then what I'm working on right now is actually a virtual seminar series where, just market updates, right? There's so much going on in the world right now, especially here in the US. And I'm here to answer questions. There's a lot of stuff that are top of mind.
Right.
And that's what I found with LinkedIn is people have a lot of questions. They just don't know who to ask.
Right. Right. Yeah, and I'm all about attraction marketing. So I try to help people get those educational things out there, get very visible so people see them and they really attract those ideal clients. Nothing's worse than trying to chase clients, right? Trying to figure it out. I like the people who, have a need and they kind of come to you. So if you were going to give advice to someone starting, maybe in this space, what kind of advice would you give them?
So one, it would be to diversify, right? Buzzword, right? But diversify your sourcing methods, right? Like that's the thing that I've learned in 2020 is you can't, whatever was working, you better have more, if you were 100% in direct mail, right? Let's just
Right.
use that as an example.
Yes.
That might not work anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
you really have to make sure that I always look at it in percentages, right? So it's like, okay, I need to be a third in this space, a third in that space, and a third in that space, right?
Right.
And so whatever, and the reason I was being vague there is because not everybody likes networking, right? Not everybody likes knocking on doors, cold calling, or direct mail, right?
The worst,
who likes to do that, right?
No, thank you.
Yeah. So I think that would be the number one advice. And this advice was given to me, and I still have to internalize this, right? That you're going to hear a lot of no's, right? And whatever motivation it is to just, you hear a no and you pick up the phone again, right? And just move on, right? And you never know what people are going through, and timing's wrong and things like that. Focus on what you can control. And that's where I mentioned a minute ago about lagging indicators versus leading indicators. Activity matters.
Right.
Getting up every day and just moving forward, even when you don't feel like it, just do something. The analogy I would use, and I'll tie it back to business, but from the personal training side of things, it was always just get up and do 10 minutes. Put your clothes on, get to the gym.
Get those feel good endorphins going.
Right, just get there, right? Talk about it.
Yep, exactly.
And then this, small business piece, same thing. Even if you're not feeling it, find one phone call that you're like, okay, I want to do this call. And then you do the second call. And then before you know it, the calls are just rolling.
Right.
And or the whatever it might be, you just got to get started.
Yeah. And being in business for yourself is not for lazy people. I always say, I think I used this on another podcast, so I probably shouldn't say it again, but you work 100 hours for yourself so you don't have to work 40 for someone else, right? But I think it's important that, people for some reason have this perception, especially as a startup, that it's going to be easy, that it's going to, I'm good at my thing and it's going to be really, really easy. And they get in there and they find out, it's not so easy to get it rolling. And eventually it gets easier, but you have to put in the time, you have to put in the work. And it's like you said, you have to show up every day. You have to treat it like a job. Yes, you have some freedom, but you still have to treat it like a job or you're not going to be very successful with what you're doing. Telling you that after 29 years of this stuff. But it's interesting. Some of my best clients have come from referrals from financial advisors. So it's always it's a great connection. Even for you to work, to get to know business consultants, business coaches, because, we have a lot of the same types of clients. And I like to help them make money, and then you can help them invest it. So
Bingo. I like it.
Yeah. So what, Ed, anything else as far as advice or strategy that you could give business owners or people in business? That could be professionals too, but people looking to invest their money.
Yeah, so I think that a lot of times for business owners, and you're definitely in this space more than I am, but it feels like people are so focused on growth that
Mhm.
they don't focus on, saving enough, right?
Yeah.
So
Oh,
I've talked like this year really tested people that in businesses that are over leveraged,
mhm.
right? And that's
Yeah.
personal and business, right? When we are living on debt and then all of a sudden our income stream goes away, you're kind of in trouble. So the first step before you ever get to investing, it's just cash, right? Do you have an emergency fund set up? And I think that can, apply for businesses and then also for individuals. And then the next step is, okay, what's short-term savings, right? For the individuals, it's what vacations, right? Or for small businesses, it's what other profit centers or whatever you're going to invest back into the company,
Mhm.
right? New tools or whatever it might
Right.
be. Then you have your ongoing costs,
Mhm.
right? Just the monthly, your monthly budget for an individual or the monthly cost for the business, right? So once those three buckets are solid, then we can start talking about investing,
Mhm.
right? And as far as a small business goes, this is what I always like to talk about. There are investment vehicles that can help with your annual income, right? If you start investing, because people always think about 401ks. Well, if
Mhm.
you're a 5 employee business, right? Or even just 2 employees, right? The owner and one other employee, a 401k doesn't make a ton of sense.
Mhm.
But there are different IRA options that are still pre-tax that can help small business owners save for the future,
Mhm.
save on the benefits. And that's the number one thing that I think all business owners know is retention. Keeping your employees
Right.
is the number one, either cost or cost savings, depending on your turnover.
Exactly. No, that's a really great point.
And the
That,
best way to do that is benefits,
mhm.
right?
Right.
Either the healthcare side of things or some kind of investing.
Well, and
And
to be a good owner.
well, of course, right? You got to
People
be a good
need
person.
owners.
No, totally. But that's where that kind of conversation goes is like,
Right.
look, there are tools that you can do. And then going back to where we started this conversation, it's goals, right? So if your goal is to sell this and retire on the sale of the business, then maybe you don't need a SEP IRA or a simple IRA,
Mhm.
right? Because
Right.
just build it, put all the money in that, and that is your investment vehicle, right? Because
Yes.
you're going to sell it. But if you're going to pass it on to your kids, or you're going to, if you're not going to sell it, then you still need to be saving for retirement some way. And
Mhm.
there are cost savings associated or tax savings associated with those.
I just want to stop you right there because I am going to interject that there's no reason why people should not be building their business to be an asset. Now, granted, if you're going to pass it down, that's one thing, if that's going to be your legacy. But if you're not going to do that, you should be building your business for your retirement and as an asset. I mean, it's how you can build wealth with your business. So it's crazy to not do that. But a lot of small business owners don't think that way.
Right. And I think that that's the conversation, right? Is it's like,
Yes.
okay, you need to be growing this. You're not going to be doing this forever. Maybe you are, right?
Mhm.
Some people want to do it forever, so that's totally fine. But
They'll always exit though. They might
right,
think that, but you always exit. You have to exit at some point.
right. And I think that the question really is, I always use buckets, right? I think all of us financial advisors use buckets, right? So we want to make sure, that's after tax. That's going to be taxed in a certain
Right.
way. Well, then we also want to have our pre-tax,
Mhm.
right? We also want to have so there's different tax advantages based on the different buckets that our money's in. We don't want it all, no matter what you do, you don't want all your money in one bucket.
Mhm. Right. Dusty, having this conversation, I can really tell your passion is really comes through, as I know you can tell mine does too. But yeah, I love it because even though you haven't been doing this for an extremely long time, you're very knowledgeable, and you really, you've really given a lot of clarity here. And I think people can just see your passion and the fact that you're in it for them. And obviously you want to make a living, but you're really truly, I always say we have to be in it for our clients first, or we'll never make a living with what we're doing. we'll never be successful. So I love all this. I have one more question for you. What is the fear that people have when they are thinking about investing or working with a financial advisor? Like, what keeps people from wanting to do that besides maybe not having money?
Yeah. Again, great question. I think that there's probably a couple, right? I think the main one is we have this kind of mentality where I've heard where people go, well, what's in it for you? Right. So why are you helping me? What's it going to cost me
Mm-hmm.
and things like that. So I think that it's the cost piece. And I think that people just don't necessarily understand because there are so many financial advisors out there, and we've heard, we see these certain movies that
Right.
portray certain money managers in a certain way, and then they hear, the Ponzi schemes and everything like that, that they don't trust it,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Right.
think the key is, hey, I'm here for you, right? This is your money, and that's where I just lean into the goals,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like there's a cost associated with investing your money. And again, I'm going to use this analogy, right? You could go lose weight on your own, right? You can do that. You
Yes.
can go get stronger on your own, but
Mm-hmm.
it happens quicker and safer with a personal trainer.
Sure.
Same thing. You can jump on and you can invest in the market, right? You can buy equities, you can buy these bonds, you can do these things on your own.
Mm-hmm.
But one is complicated. There's not much safety to it. And then there's that sounding board, right? Like
Right.
that's when I think that anybody that wants to work with a professional, they understand that there's a knowledge base that you're paying for,
Yes.
right?
That's right.
And I think this comes from the personal training side of things, right? Because I was asking for $60 for 45 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I had to show you that it was worth that 45
Wow,
minutes.
you were inexpensive.
I know, right? But to me, it seemed, and that was because it was 3 to 4 days a week, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, but I was so used to talking with cost and proving my value. That
Mm-hmm.
same thing here, where people go, okay, well, how much should I, I'm very upfront with how much you've paid, up or over the last year,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's like, okay, well, what is that percentage, right? Let's break it down to a percentage. And anytime you're a percent or below, you're doing pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because again, if you're getting 6-7%, right, return on your investment,
Right. Right.
you're going to be able to retire off of that as long as you're continuing to contribute.
Yeah.
So that's 6-7% after the cost,
Well,
right?
I just want to bring up a point too. If you don't really know what you're doing, you'll lose a lot more than that. So, that's the thing. What's the cost to not be the professional? What's the cost to not be the expert at what you do? This is what you wake up and do every day. This is what I wake up and do every day. And I always tell people, I'm not a cost in your business. I'm an investment. I'm going to make you so much more money than you ever pay me. It's kind of a no-brainer. And it really is the same with someone like yourself. If you've been trained well and you know what you're doing, and you're not going to rip somebody off, obviously, you're going to be able to make them money. And if they try to do that on their own, just like business owners who think they can just muddle through and work through everything, they lose more money. It costs them more to do that than they'll ever pay someone like me or someone like you, right?
Right. And so Vanguard actually did a white paper research on this.
Mm-hmm.
So again, Vanguard's kind of known as the low cost, right, way to invest. And they did a report on this that an advisor will actually get you 2% or more per year return on your investment
Mm-hmm.
than if you're doing it yourself.
Interesting.
So right there, one of kind of the low cost investment firms out there kind of showed, hey, you should be working with someone who's in the business, who understands this. And look, at the end of the day, the reason people lose money, right? It's not necessarily because you pick a bad investment. It's because the market pulled back 25% and you didn't like the way it felt and you pulled your money out, right? Where that's really where, us advisors make our money, is where you call us, back in April, May this year, and it's like, what's going on? What do I need to do? And it's like, nothing, right? We're good.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I call it intestinal fortitude, right? It's a gut check, right? It hurts. But, people were saying during that time, they're like, hey, a lot of people are making a lot of money right now.
Mm-hmm.
and I want to do what they're doing. And it's like, okay, well, they're doing one of two things. They're not selling. And
Mm-hmm.
the second thing is if they have money available, they're buying at a discount.
Right.
Those are the two ways you make money in this. The one way for sure you can lose money is by going to cash.
Mhm. Right, right. No, that's interesting. Those are really good points. You had said something earlier, and it's kind of slipped my mind. See, I told you if I don't catch it
I'm
right
sorry.
when you say it, I won't remember. But that's okay. It might come back to me. Anything else that you would like to share, or that you would like my listeners to know about or to hear, that would be helpful?
In 2020, the most important thing is your emergency fund, right?
That was it. That's what I was going to talk to you about. Yay!
Right? Go ahead before you lose it.
No, no, I was just going to say, when the economy is good and the market's good, there's a lot of overflow. There's money for everybody, right? And you don't have to be very good in business. You don't have to be very good in business to get business when the economy is good. But again, even those people are still a lot of times not really making money. They're just kind of getting by. And so the minute something shifts or changes, they're left, like you said, without emergency funds. They haven't put money away for a rainy day. Those are all things that I help people do in their business as well. Not leave money on the table, get it socked away. Don't run your business so close that you're one month away or one paycheck away even from closing the doors, which is what a lot of them do. So no, that was actually what I was going to bring up because you kind of hit on that as well. But go ahead now. Now that I've made you forget what you're going to say, go ahead
Yeah,
and
no,
talk about that.
I think that, we need to automate it, right? I think that that's the next level, right? Is if we have a 401k with our company, there's forced savings, right? If we own our home, right? People don't look at it this way, but this idea was just presented to me recently and I love it, that paying your mortgage is also a forced savings,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because you're paying down the mortgage and you're
Sure.
building equity. We don't do that with our savings account. And so that's where, we need to automate and go, okay, I'm going to pay myself first. Am I
Mm-hmm.
going to, I got my 401k, I got my mortgage. Maybe I need, what is it every paycheck that just automatically gets sent to a savings account, right? That we don't touch.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the accountability, right?
Right.
Like that's the hard part. But is when you have that decision, and this is what I always say is save first,
Mm-hmm.
spend second. Don't spend first, save second. Because if you do that second one, you never have enough money to save.
No, that's very true. That's very true. People find that they can make do with a lot less. They can live on a lot less. They can run their business on a lot less. If they don't miss it, right? If it's not there for them. I know I used to laugh when I was running businesses, and I tell this story when I had my first business, and I thought if I had money in the bank account, everything was great, right? Until I really understood business.
Look, we make so many decisions out of every day, right? One of the books I read, hate him or love him, right? Steve Jobs.
Mhm.
Um,
Right.
he, a lot of these kind of tech, CEOs wear the exact same thing every day,
Hmm.
right? And they have closets full of white t-shirts and jeans or a black sweater and jeans, right? And the reason is we have decision making is a finite resource.
Hmm.
And if you have the decision between, do I go out to dinner with my family or do I save the $50, we know how we're going to make that decision.
Hmm.
But if that $50 has already been moved to a savings account and now I have to move it, then it's like,
Right.
okay,
You have to think about it.
so much work. Let's just have dinner at home.
Yeah.
So that's where I think that people, if they take anything, it's like, let's automate this,
Right.
right? Let's have a forced savings for our investments and forced savings for our emergency fund.
Hmm. No, I think that's really, really great advice. So anything else you would like to add before we wrap this up? This has been an amazing conversation. I've loved having you on and getting to know you and more about what you do. So anything else that you want to tell the listeners?
No, I kind of hit it with the forced savings. I think that's the most important thing. So this
Okay,
is
so there
awesome.
you have it. There's your gold nut. There's one of your gold nuggets for this podcast is make sure you're automating your savings so it gets done and it's consistent. Yeah, and you won't miss it. I mean, you're not going to miss it. And that dinner that you think you will eat out, you'll forget it by tomorrow. You won't even remember what you ate. So just put it into an investment or a savings account. So I love it. Um, Jesse, this has been so great. And thank you so much for being my guest on the show. How can people get a hold of you?
So I don't believe there's many Dusty DeGroffs out there. So Google is a great place, and LinkedIn. LinkedIn is the space that I spend a lot of time just supporting other business owners and other professionals.
Okay.
And LinkedIn is an amazing, amazing platform these days. So that
Yes.
those two places.
I love it. Okay, awesome. Now, is there anything that you would like to offer our listeners as a giveaway or anything that you have that you would like them to check out?
So can't do anything like that from a
Okay,
client standpoint,
okay.
but my door is always open, right?
For a
So
conversation. There you
yeah,
go.
exactly. I'm here to answer any questions and just really demystify finance.
Well, first of all, that is not that's not a non-valuable gift. That is a very valuable. Your time is your very valuable gift to our listeners. So if you are looking to invest or to get some financial advice or see where you need to go for your future, or even in your business right now, please reach out to Dusty and just have that conversation. And if nothing else, you're going to make a new friend. So.
There you go.
I
Well,
love it. All right, Dusty, thanks so much for being on with me. It's been just great.
thank you so much. It's been awesome.
You are welcome.